Hey guys, good evening. And right now I am trying to fix my live video on my personal page because we all know that it wouldn't be Paranormal Brew without some technical difficulties. I don't know um, why it's not letting me change the um, why it's not letting me change the privacy here with the oh, should I do it here? Let me see something. Sorry, I'm gonna bring. Oh shit! What'd I do? Um. Anyway, I don't know why it's not letting me fix this here. Damn it! I hate when this stuff happens. Uh, it's not letting me edit the damn privacy stuff. I don't know why. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry, ladies. They're in the back chat. They're probably thinking like this is like crazy. Give me 1 second. Why isn't it letting me edit the damn privacy? It's not letting me edit the privacy. So I can't on my personal page. I can't get it to come up. So it's only streaming on Paranormal Brew. Fun. Tonight I have two lovely ladies with me, Liz and Arin, and they are from Spirit Seekers, Echoes of the Afterlife. They are just two women that like to investigate together, and they go all kinds of fun places, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So we're just going to talk about paranormal investigating and kind of like almost like a roundtable type of a thing. So without any further, I'm going to bring them on. Hey, ladies.
Hi.
You two are so cute. So I'm literally here trying to change the privacy because, with this restream, it doesn't let my personal page. Let me see if I can I'm going to go to Paranormal Brew and share it from there. Hold on. Because for some reason it's not letting me change the privacy. So let me make this public. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I'm going to share Paranormal Brew's video to my personal page, and hopefully I haven't had this issue before. I just click on it and I can, if you do a post and you want to edit the privacy.
Yeah.
And it's not letting me do that for some reason. It's
weird.
It's just saying only me. Why would I want that set for only me? This is crazy.
I know. I tried to link our YouTube account because it gives you like the option to link the channels, and it said we had to wait like 24 hours or something for like a privacy approval or something like that.
Really? Is that
Hmm.
new?
It
It
might
might
be.
be, yeah.
This is so stupid. Anyway, I'm not going to waste time with that. So if anybody's watching, please either go to Paranormal Brew, go to YouTube. Those are both public, but for some reason on my private page, it's not letting it not letting me change the privacy. So anyway, this isn't about me. It's about you two and spirit seekers. Um, so let's get into it. We'll go one at a time, and Liz, if you want to, or Arin, who, if you guys want to just talk about, how you got into it, when you got into the paranormal, and eventually we'll talk about how you guys got hooked up, and we'll go from there. So go ahead. The floor is yours, ladies.
Um, so I guess for me, there's not like a big lore origin story of any kind. I was always very intrigued and interested by things like paranormal and things like that. I did grow up in a religious household, so kind of tapping into those things and even being curious about those things a lot of times is discouraged.
Mhm.
Um, and so I kind of grew up with this like secret obsession of everything paranormal. And this was like a pipe dream for me. It's kind of like when you're little and you're like, oh, I'm going to be an astronaut. Like that's kind of what this was until last year, really. And
Yeah.
we just started talking and we were like, well, I mean, because I always thought really it took like a special business license or something to do it. But we were talking about it one day and I was like, I wonder how they start. And then we just were like, well, they probably just do. And then, I mean, there's not like I don't have like a Bruce Wayne origin cool lore type of story. It's just always been something I
And
love.
that's perfect. I love that. I love that. Where are you guys from?
So I'm from a lot of places. I've always said this. I'm born and raised for the first 4 years of my life in Bessemer, Alabama. And then moved to Florida later on, and then I've lived in Georgia, and I've lived in Colorado and Wyoming. So I've been everywhere, but I guess I'm technically an Alabamian native. Um, but she's you're from Douglas, right?
Yeah, so I'm from a little tiny town with like 750, I think was the latest population count. Um, but the name of it's Douglas, like Horton area. Um, also Gadsden, Alabama area.
So you guys are in Alabama.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So now, Liz, like living in all those like different places, what would you say was probably the most paranormal attractive place that you've lived?
Florida for
Really?
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got a lot of history, a lot
But
of
I mean,
history.
like,
Especially like Pensacola, Tallahassee, like all of those major cities have a lot of charged history, not just from white colonialism, but like when the Spaniards were trying to colonize down here, and like they were killing off all the Native Americans and all of that stuff. It's really, really rich in history, and that's actually part of where I started getting into the paranormal. Because really, it started with me not wanting to go to bed and staying up and watching TV with my mom when I wasn't supposed to, and she was watching Ghost Hunters on the TV.
oh my God. How
And then
now I feel
eventually,
old.
and then and then and then my dad decided one day, he was like, well, why don't we just like go on little historical tours? And so we went one October to Pensacola and we started doing those tours. And after that, we did it like multiple more times after that. So it was like we went to the Pensacola Lighthouse when TAPS did like a little thing there where they invited people to come over to the Pensacola Lighthouse and do an investigation with them. Um, and then we kind of I remember. Oh, I've also been to New Orleans. Now, New Orleans, I've not ever lived in Louisiana, but New Orleans is obviously very, very, very charged. It is an energy that you will not feel anywhere else.
Real,
Just
that's it,
because,
yeah.
like it's it's so good. Like I could talk for hours about it.
Well, I mean, we have some time, so we definitely can talk about, New Orleans. Obviously, that's going to be one of my questions is like where's one of the most haunted places that you guys have been, so if New
Mhm.
Orleans is, you know, that place, you know what I mean? And I would love to hear about it. I don't think I've ever really had anybody on here that lived in New Orleans and was uh and talked about it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, so I'm still trying. I'm sorry. I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm still trying to figure out why I can't make it public on my personal page. So crazy.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm just gonna shoot over to Paranormal Brew and watch us from there. It doesn't let you. It doesn't let my. Okay. Sorry
So
about
I
that.
would say one of the probably most well-known places that we have been that we could talk about. We haven't done a like overnight investigation, but we did go to Sloss Furnace here in Birmingham.
Oh, nice.
And actually now, so it was like a notoriously haunted. They did the, Halloween haunted house out of the, place. And then recently they're deterring the paranormal tourism side and they're leaning more towards like the history and they're trying to get like school field trips and things to go there. And but you can still go visit during the day. So we went one day and we signed it as a visitors thing and we were talking to the guy who works there and I asked him, I was like, so, we've read that this place is haunted. Do you know anything about that? He was like, oh, there's nothing here and blah, blah. And then he started telling us about how they're trying to deter that side. And so now they're essentially acting like the people who died there never died there, the stuff that happened there never happened there. And I don't know how much you know about Sloss Furnace, but like just a quick like summation of the history. It was the biggest iron factory, like iron what would you call it? Like mill, I guess, like an iron,
Manufacturing plant.
right. It was like an iron manufacturing plant. And it was so when slavery ended, there were so many people obviously that needed jobs because they couldn't sustain to live as free people on their own, so they went and worked at Sloss Furnace, and there was a supervisor by the name of James Wormwood, and he was known to be like one of the worst. He worked them until there was so much exhaustion, like people were falling over grates into the furnace itself. There was employees like having these really weird like freak accidents because they were so tired and overworked that their brains weren't functioning.
Wow.
Um, so like that's a part of it. There's been a lot of people back in like the early 2000s I know that went and investigated there. But we just took our equipment up there
I think
and
ghost hunters were there, right? Ghost hunters went to Sloss Furnace, didn't they?
Earth Adventures.
right,
Both
right,
of them did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean we just put like our SB7, the spirit box. We had a couple other little pieces of equipment that we just stuck in a backpack and we just went through and tried to see what we could get because I mean, technically we weren't doing anything wrong because you're allowed to go tour and walk through during the day. There's no rules about you can't pull out a spirit box. So we were walking through and we were in this big, it's called like what was it, like the boiler room, I think.
Yeah.
And it's where they had like where all the people were falling over and like there was people getting sucked into like giant fans and stuff. And we were in there, um, and we heard somebody walking up on the catwalk and like they had the pathway up to this catwalk chained off because apparently people had been going and climbing up there and getting hurt. So they completely closed it off.
Hmm.
So we start hearing boots. It sounded like steel toe work boots, just
Oh, that's
stomping.
cool.
And so
Mhm.
I was like, I think I said, like, is somebody walking around up there or something? And we got, you hear me? And then,
I literally
yeah.
remember.
And then
You
after
guys
that,
heard that like with your ears.
yes,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
that was not through because see, like a lot of people don't know the separation. So there's EVPs that you get through like a spirit box or an EVP recorder, but then sometimes it's just auditory. Like
somebody
sometimes
voice.
I can hear it like if
Yeah.
she said something.
And it's not like sometimes I believe personally that spirits can choose who hears them.
Hmm.
Right.
Like, she can hear things a lot of the time that I can't hear.
Right.
And I just look at her like, "Are you sure that you heard that?" Because I'm like, "I didn't hear anything, girl."
And there's been some times, I think Sloss actually was one of the times where we're investigating and I hear something and I'll ask her, like, did you hear that? And she says no. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm obviously tripping or I'm crazy. But then we'll go back and review what we got in that moment. And she hears it.
Yeah.
So in that moment, sometimes I hear things that she doesn't hear, but then you go back and play it. There was another, we went to the old Jemison Center,
Oh man, I love that
and
place.
it's asylum for people who, I say it was an asylum, but really at the time that it was used, it was for just anybody who wasn't like normal, like if you developmental disabilities, mental illness, any type of mental health issue, or honestly, from what I've read, your family just didn't want to deal with you, they would put you in there.
Yeah.
And we went to this one portion of one of the buildings where there was a doll, like a baby doll head in the floor. And I was walking around with the spirit box in my hand and I was like, oh, is this your baby? Or no, I said, oh, is this your toy? And you could hear it clear as day. That's my baby. Ah,
Aw.
ooh. Yeah.
Girl, it like whenever I didn't hear it at the time, like it came through on the SP7,
Yeah.
and I couldn't make out what it said at the time, but when we played it back, I heard it and I was like, girl, I thought I was going to pee myself.
Yeah.
I was like, no way she said that.
So like haunted places, I would say top 3, Sloss Furnace.
Mhm.
We recently went to Pickens County, Georgia, and did a
Okay.
jail. We did the old Pickens County jail. It's actually on the Trail of Tears.
Mhm.
And it also is on a earth ring.
Yeah, an earth ring that I think is like close to a ley line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know one of the people watching tonight is actually from the group that we had go with us to Pickens County Jail.
Hey, David.
If David would like to comment what is going on with that, he can.
What did you say? The line of tears?
So
Trail of Tears.
it
Trail of
was part of the Trail of Tears, and it's on a earth ring that is right near a ley line.
So what's
And
the Trail of Tears, though? I don't know
the
what that
trail is where, so the Indian Removal Act, when they came in and they moved all the Native Americans and they all, the Trail of Tears is essentially to in a summation, it's the path that the Native Americans walked after being forced out of their land and their
Okay.
home.
Okay.
And on that Trail of Tears, it goes for states.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
So a lot of people like died along
Yeah.
the way, like there's a
Wow,
lot of
this is the first I'm hearing about. I've never heard that term. I've never heard Trail of Tears before.
there was on the Trail of Tears, like she was like, there was so much death just specifically on this one path because they had so much famine and disease and things like that. And they were even like, even back then, they had elderly people. So, like, they were trying to take these 80, 90-year-old people and walk them states to wherever they thought they would be able to go without being harassed.
Mhm.
And during that path, a lot of them, I actually read when I was researching, it was 3/4 of the four most like predominant tribes, 75% of them were actually wiped out during like
The
the
walk.
war and the Indian Removal Act.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's sad. That's really sad. I never heard of that. Um,
Yeah.
what was I going to ask you guys? So David did respond, but you guys might understand this. I don't. I don't
Boy,
know.
bro.
What,
David,
So,
I can't.
so, okay, he said an earth ring is
okay,
a
here we go.
small,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah,
Okay, yeah. An earth ring is like a small localized ley line. Ley lines go all the way around the earth, so they are a big circle. Earth rings are just small versions of ley lines, so like a region-sized circle.
Okay.
yeah, and they essentially, to explain it from what I understand, it's like a,
Conduit.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like an energy super field.
It kind of
Yeah.
like it definitely helps with quote unquote portals.
Right.
For these spirits to come through. Like that's generally in places like ley lines or earth rings, you can find that the places that tend to be sitting directly on those things have a lot of traffic, and not all of them are always the
Yeah.
same spirits. So like it's kind of like they spirits really can go anywhere they want.
Right.
Like there's certain um circumstances that sometimes they get trapped in a place, they can't leave it, but for the most part, a lot of the time they can just choose to go wherever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have free
Um,
will.
yeah, they, and it gets really interesting the further you go down that rabbit hole, but I don't think everybody's prepared for that.
So do you find that you guys being where you're at, you deal with more on the Native American side of things? Like, have you ever had any Native American EVPs or Native American experiences? You know, I personally I have a healthy fear of Native American, not because they're
Right.
scary, but because they seem so powerful, and like if you piss them off, they can do the most damage, like
Well,
so
just they're connected to the
Yeah.
land. They like
right.
they work with their culture's beliefs, like the water spirit, the land spirits, like everything has a soul to them. So
Yeah, and we went to this place, and I could be mispronouncing it, but it's in, I think, Alexandria, and it's called like Talashachi Battlefield,
I'm pretty sure it's tele.
and it's where I mean, it's what it sounds like. Like there was um a tribe of Native Americans, and they had taken this little. It's really not a big spot of land. It's like this little. Now it's just a monument on the side of the road, but it's this little patch of land. But right around it, there's like a running creek and stuff. And so what they did was the Native Americans built their village there, and they used the resources. So like, near running water, you're going to have first the water, but you're going to have the livestock, the mushrooms, the pecan trees, that type of stuff. And so we went out there, and we did know going out there that, this was part of what we were talking about with the Indian Removal Act. Like this was overrun by, the white man. They actually, this is really terrible, but to get an idea of how intense it was, what actually ended up happening there. So, like, the big stream ran into this pond at the end. And what actually ended up happening was when the white people invaded and removed, to remove the Native Americans, they went in and they said, hey, we've been in peaceful trade, but now, we want your land. Are you going to sell it to us for basically nothing? Or are we going to take it? And they were pretty much like, well, we're not going to sell it to you. So then at that point, what they actually did was when the white people came in, they um, took all the children out to this big pond.
Oh my
And
goodness.
they put all the kids out in the pond. So the kids, start drowning and they're screaming. And then the parents all rush into the pond to get their kids out. But when all the parents rush in to get the kids out, the white troops formed a perimeter around the pond. And
Mm,
they stood there with weapons and stuff, and they kept all the mothers, the fathers, the kids in this little pond until literally all of them, every single one of them had drowned. And the
really?
only left behind was one baby, and one of the white generals, him and his wife could not have kids. So he picked this baby up and took this baby home, and him and his wife raised it as their own, and then came back. And actually, the monument that stands there now is a monument for that Native American baby that was raised by that white general. So
Wow.
there's like a whole, that place.
And that man, that Native American, specifically the child that survived, he didn't die until like the 70s.
Yeah.
And
So
what year was this? Around what time was this?
This would have been,
like late 1800s, right?
yeah, like late, I think 1800s, early. I would have to fact check that, but I think so.
Hmm.
And we were talking about like the EVPs and stuff. I remember being out there, and we weren't honestly getting very much until when you're sitting where the monument is, there's like a little remnant of what looks like it was a wood shack. And so we walked back towards that shack, and I started asking, like, was this your home? Is this where you had your children? Da, da, da. And there's like a entryway into the little wood shack. And as soon as I leaned down to go in, you could hear clear, I mean, crystal clear, this is mine. And I mean, it was like a scream.
Yeah.
So obviously I backed up because, just like you were saying, Native American stuff, we waited a while to even touch that because,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, if you get into that and you don't know what you're doing, and you don't know, because I mean, some things people do that are disrespectful, they might not realize.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
But like what you're saying, in all honesty, the Native American locations, originally we decided we just weren't going to do.
Hmm.
But
Honestly, there's so much of it
yeah,
around. You can't really escape it.
yeah,
Yeah.
So, and not that I would want to anyway, because I've always had a deep respect for Native Americans. Um, like my dad used to take me to the powwows in Florida that would happen, and so just to teach me about their culture, because why not teach your kid about someone else's culture?
right.
And ever since then, I've just been absolutely fascinated with everything about them. Um, so, like, one of the things that we do when we go to Native American sites is we bring like a little satchel of tobacco, like loose leaf
Yes.
tobacco, and we leave that as offering, like peace offering. And sometimes I'll also bring, like, I collect crystals like rose quartz, amethyst, obsidian, stuff like that. I will sometimes leave little crystals behind for them too, because back then you traded with what?
I mean, yeah,
Exactly. So I was just like, here, you have these.
Right.
These are for you.
Yeah.
For the most part, that honestly I think helps, just as long as you approach the situation with a lot of respect for them, what they've been through, for their land, like make sure you're telling them, hey, I'm not here to take anything from you. Like, I'm just here for a conversation. If you want us to leave, you tell us to leave and we'll leave immediately, kind of deal. Just because, we don't want to aggravate anybody, especially because we're two white women. Like,
yeah,
hello.
That's
yeah,
true.
So we don't want to traumatize them any further, at least.
That's true. I mean, you got to think like you're either you know, and they don't want to talk to you because you're white, and you know what I mean, or you're basically a magnet. you know?
Mhm.
I mean, I think when you go to places like, you know where you're going, um, and I, and you explain and you express, why you're there, what you're doing there, and you come in peace and,
Yeah.
and this and that. Like, I think that might make a difference. And even doing the peace offerings, you know what I mean? We go to Hinsdale House up in upstate New York, and that's, they have a tree offering, and they have, thing where you can hang stuff on, so dream catchers. You can leave whatever you want there, to offer.
Yeah.
Right.
And one night, one of the nights we were now again, I am not familiar with, and I like that you say that, but when you said that if you're not familiar with the Native American heritage or their, belief systems or anything like that, like you should probably not delve into that on an investigation. Um, but one of the girls was playing the drumming music, like the Indian drumming music, and it made me feel a little uncomfortable. It's only because I don't know anything about it, and I'm like, a lot of times those songs were stories, or like, would
Yeah.
tell stories, right? So, and that was the night that I say I almost got attacked by a bear, but it didn't come close to me because I was in the house in 30 seconds. But I see this bear coming towards us. I was like, oh, I'm like, that's a fucking bear. And I took off from the house. I was like, it looked deep into my soul and was back out. And I was like, nope. I pulled a dude run faster than anybody would ever
Yeah.
pull a dude run.
People actually make fun of me because I am not really scared of anything. Like what we do, it's just us.
Mhm.
And, people think it's funny because I'll do this. I'll go out to these abandoned, dark, fallen in buildings in the middle of the woods at night, but whatever. But bears, I have always said, like, bears absolutely are my number one fear because you can't outrun, outclimb, or outswim them. So, like, if one was to start chasing me, people are like, "Oh, just play dead." And I'm telling everybody, like, it would not be playing. I'd probably fall over dead from a heart attack just right there.
I'm not even kidding you. I'm not even kidding you. I'm with you. I like this.
Yeah.
It felt like its eyes went like deep into my soul and then came back out. And I was like, oh my, my butt cheeks clenched so
Yeah.
hard. And I ran, so like a tear came down my eyeball. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I've never been so scared in my life, ever. I never
Man.
been so scared. Um, but but now they're saying, well, what if it was a headdress, right? Because of how it could have been a headdress. We were playing that Indian music. What maybe it was a headdress. Um, I still, I still would have ran. My butt cheeks still would have
Yeah.
clenched. I still would have been out. Like,
Mhm.
call. I that was the scariest thing. I'm more afraid of bumping into people in the woods, like wrong turn people.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the other thing. Like, I both, like, mine and her biggest fear is not being out somewhere investigating and, like, things getting too intense. It's more, we are two women, and 90% of the places we go do not have power, or they are in the middle of the woods.
So there's no signal.
So there is no signal, which, don't get me wrong, we're protected, if
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Um, we don't leave without some way to defend ourselves. I'll just put it that way. But it's because we are two women. And you never know. Like, somebody might see us getting out of the car somewhere, walking into a building, and they might notice, hey, there's no guys with them. And that is, you know, I think the biggest risk that you take doing what we do, just being us two, is there is no men. Um, which we haven't really had any, like, problems with that so far. I mean,
Right.
we've not had any people. We've had, like, judgment and people, think
Yeah.
that we're insane, which,
Maybe we are, but who
yeah.
cares?
Who isn't a little bit crazy?
we People do think we're insane, but for the most part, like, we've not really had anybody bother us or, like, come in to the buildings. The most I would say does happen is like we went to that jail off the like beaten path, and people saw that we were in there, and so they thought it was like open for touring, so they were
Oh, gotcha.
stopping, having to tell them like, hey, which you would be surprised the amount of people when you say the words, we're looking for spirits, that turn around and are,
So fast.
yeah.
It is so funny. Sometimes, especially, there was this kid, bless his heart, couldn't have been more than like 15, 16 years old. He walked up to the Pickens County Jail while I had stepped out for a minute. And he like came up to me. He's like, "Hey, is this open?" I was like, "No, we're having a ghost investigation." He was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then he turned around and he was walking so
Yeah.
fast. It was so funny. I was like, "Yep, bye."
I would really quick want to let you guys know we're being watched in Australia, Big Ben Urban Exploration.
Oh,
Um, so
Hi.
yeah, and also back up here, I already posted her saying hi to us. But this my Ajing, my faithful, my love, she's from Indonesia, so we're also being watched in Indonesia as well. Just saying.
oh, okay, sick.
Oh, wow.
Sick.
So Big Ben does urbex, I think, when he's watched a couple of times. I think he said, "Be safe out there, ladies. A lot of crazies out there nowadays. Glad that you use and carry protection." I
Yes.
think
Right.
I think even if I had protection and I came across like a person or people in the woods, I would run. Even if I had something to defend myself,
And
Right.
I
that's
would still run.
fair because your fight or flight, it mine specifically will flicker
Yeah.
between different
Yeah.
I can't just pick one. It's either I'm probably gonna pop you in the mouth and then I'm gonna cry and run away from you.
Like,
Yeah.
like if there's a ghost, if there's like some crazy shit going on because it's spirit, I'll stay all day long. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is crazy because, like, if you think about it in perspective, we're more comfortable with what we can't see.
mhm,
But in my mind, what we can't see,
should be more scary.
it should be. But to,
Yeah.
like, from what you're saying, like, it's not. I would rather spend a night in Alcatraz prison alone than
Mhm,
to run across like some random, and it's not that I think all people are bad,
right.
but it's like I tell her, and like what Ben was pointing out, like if you run across the wrong person, like we went to one place to investigate. We actually didn't get anything. I don't think it's really haunted, but we went to one place and we were going to go in the back, and as we went around the back, there was like a shed right here, and right on the other side of that shed was probably 3 to 4 men just sitting on the ground, like drinking. I'm not sure if they were homeless or not, but they were all just sitting on the ground. And I told Liz, I was like, I'm going to get out and see if we can go in the back. So
Mhm,
she in the car, and
Mhm.
I walked through this gate, and the scary thing was I did not see them. And like Liz will tell you, she's good about like being on the lookout. I'm almost like paranoid level. Like I'm watching the cars if they're driving too slow, and I did not see them. So for me to not see them, they were like tucked back there.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I got up to the corner of the shed to round the corner, they saw me and I saw them, and one of them went to stand up, and I just turned around and started walking out of the fence. And when I turned around, he was walking out behind me, and I just told him, I was like, "Hey, I don't suggest that you follow me any further because I'm." People say all the time, like, of our friendship, Liz is the one you call if you're sad. She's the one you call, like, if you need, like, a heartfelt. She's very sweet and very caring,
you
and
both are. You
she
both
does.
seem that way.
I am, but also I will fuck somebody up in 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, she will. She is a firebrand. She will mess
And it's
you up.
all out of like self-preservation though, because
Right.
like I said, people see us and they're like, you know, like that man that was following me around. If I'd have had, for example, my husband with me, he would probably never even got up, but because I was a woman and I was alone, And, it's not to be sexist against men or whatever. I'm married to one. But at the end of the day, that's just the truth. And,
Yeah.
like, I have a younger sister, and I tell her all. David said Arin is the muscle.
And it's so funny because I'm the taller one. uh,
Big
but
Ben says that Trump is looking to. I saw this at reopening Alcatraz jail again as a prison.
Oh,
yeah,
shit. I didn't know that.
I've known about that for a little while, and it honestly, he has no business doing that.
So, well,
Um,
first of all, it's deteriorating into the ocean
Right,
little by little.
it
So
is
I don't know. It's
for a
if it's
reason.
yeah, I don't know if it's definitely even going to be you know safe enough for it to be a prison. Because of it going into the ocean. And I think Alcatraz, much like the okay, so Alcatraz, you guys had mentioned a place earlier, which is why I want to bring this up. But you have Alcatraz, you have Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, you have I was just going to say another place. Alcatraz, the place you guys are at, Eastern State Penitentiary. There's a lot of places now that used to do paranormal and now they don't anymore. Oh, I know Stanley Hotel in Colorado. Stanley Hotel
Yeah,
in Colorado used to do paranormal stuff and they don't do it anymore. And they're
Right.
like, well, we just want to, base it on history. But what gets me so angry about that is that we and if let me know if you agree with me, um, we are basically trying to keep the history alive in these places too. We just do it in a different way.
That's like a huge part of what I like about ghost hunting is not so much the actual like doing the investigation, but the learning about what happened and then having the opportunity to talk to that person
yeah,
as
And
if
keeping that history alive and learning and hopefully maybe uncovering new history. You know what
yeah,
I mean? I mean, because you're looking and you're investigating and you're researching in a whole nother aspect of it. You know what I mean? So we're basically doing the same thing, people. It's just we're doing it in a
yeah.
different way.
Liz will tell you I bitch about this all the time about people who own these historic locations where, like, a map. Like, okay, here's a good example. This is a prime example of what you're talking about. There is a place in Alabama, and it used to be. So this man opened it with the idea of it being a memorial mound. And so what he did was he went to all these people and he was like, hey, if you don't want to put your family member in the ground, but you also don't want to cremate them and you don't want them in a mausoleum, he opened this big, huge space where he built these racks and he would stack these caskets on racks in this big space. And, people would come in and, like, visit their family member's casket and leave them flowers and the little concrete angel grave markers and stuff like that. And so in 2018, actually, so the man died apparently in like 2013 or 14. And in 2018, the FBI went in because there was reports of, like, really bad smells. The yard outside was overgrown, and people were just noticing, like, they didn't see the old man going in and out anymore. And so they went in and found out that he had actually died years before, and the conditions of the inside were so bad. And you got to think these are caskets, but caskets are not meant. I know most people think that they are, but they don't last forever.
no,
Right.
And after so long, you have issues with smells and stuff like that. So the FBI went in and they were like, okay, well, he's not here to take care of it. He had no kids. So essentially, the government sold it to just a random buyer. And when Liz and I went to go try and investigate it, we pulled up, and I promise you, Liz will vouch for me. I promise you. We pulled up, and it was like something out of a movie. You pull up, and there's like the open into the building over here, and they've got all of these grave markers, like these little concrete angels, people's flower arrangements, people's literal like little mini headstones, and they've just thrown them all out in the parking lot. So they
Oh
were cleaning the
my gosh.
do something else with it. And obviously the FBI had already taken out the bodies, but these things left behind, they just went in and took it out and put it out in the middle of the parking lot, out into this like ditch on the side of the parking lot. And I told Liz, like, it pissed me off so badly because you knew what it was when you bought it, and you chose to, instead of coming and like, I understand if you buy a space and you want to turn it into something, but maybe instead of us going in and putting these people's grave markers in the middle of a parking lot and in the dirt, maybe we, box them up, do something with them, but not. And it was really like, I can't explain that feeling of just seeing, like, there was a junk car in the parking lot, and one of them had the hood weighted down with one of those concrete little baby angel grave marker things.
Oh wow.
And there was clothes everywhere, and it just pissed me off because even if you were cleaning it out, there's ways to be respectful.
Sure.
And then you have issues with people like Sloss Furnace. You're telling people nobody ever died here. You're telling people nothing happened. You're essentially trying to erase every single person who passed away there.
Mm-hmm.
And especially considering it was so traumatic. Like, I get so fired up about that topic because I don't know what makes us think as humans that we have a right to own and destroy things that are historical, because those are things you're never going to get back. That's
Right.
another thing.
Absolutely.
And like, people don't, even if you don't like, I called one place. Honestly, I should name drop, but I won't. And I know it is a very notoriously haunted place. Like, everybody that even people who probably don't do this would know. And I called and I was like, hey, I saw where people that came and did investigations like a few years ago. I was just wanting to know if y'all still allowed people to come in. And she actually told me that I was doing the devil's work and rebuked me before she hung up on me.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was the location that did paranormal stuff?
They had in the past, they were very well known for like letting people come in, almost like Waverly Hills.
Yeah.
Like when you
were talking in my head, I'm thinking, I wonder if this is Waverly Hills. But then I was like, no.
It was not. It was not. We actually, I have reached out to them too, and they still do it.
Yeah.
And the guy that I talked to, I mean, that's essentially what he told me, was trying to erase instead of embrace what happened just is not, it's wrong. Like, it's just wrong. And imagine if, it was your dad was one of these factory workers at Sloss Furnace who fell in the furnace and died.
Right.
And, you go back 40 years later to visit, and the worker at the front says, nobody ever died here. Like, immediately to me, I would be pissed off. Like, well, actually, and these were all somebody's family. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, and let's just say my family member was somebody that worked there and died there, and you guys went in there, and let's just say you guys got an EVP and you somehow connected the dots, and you're like, hey, Taryn, we caught your dad. He said this on EV. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be something that, you'd hope to make that connection. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why all of a sudden it's becoming, to be so, I don't know. It's becoming to be so, like, some of these places, like I said, they just are like, oh, we just want to be known for the history. Well, when you're paranormal investigating or researching, you're researching the history.
Yeah. Like, the history still lives there. It's gonna let you know it's there.
Right.
You're just at that point silencing them even further because, they already have this, for lack of a better term, veil that keeps them from being able to openly talk to us. Um, that, and like, it requires a lot of energy for them to be able to manifest in that
Yeah.
way. Um, and then you're going ahead and just being like, okay, well, there's no ghost here. You
Which,
can't.
honestly, if it's a very haunted place, they're experiencing stuff. They're just choosing to ignore it.
And I will
Yeah.
tell you this, and this is funny to me, and I tell everybody this when I talk about Sloth's Furnace. The same man who said to me, nobody died here. It's not haunted. I've worked here for years. And I was like, oh, so like you work here at night by yourself? No, I won't be here at night by myself. And I was like, okay. So like but see, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, just like what Big Ben just said about people wanting to hide history,
Yeah. Yeah, he
I
just said,
think
"I don't know why."
and like especially, and like we can get into this a little bit later, but Liz and I both have different connections with paranormal, and I'm extremely, extremely empathic. And so, I imagine how I would have felt like if I was working trying to support my family and I worked a 48-hour shift and then I fell into the furnace and died. And then 30 years later, they're telling everybody, no, nobody died here. If I was still around and I was there, like, I'm actually going to haunt somebody. Like, I'm going to be crawling into your dreams, giving you nightmare. Like, I'm going to do some fucked up shit because it's just so wrong. And like, what makes me even more upset is when you go places and
Right.
they know that it is haunted. Like, they know it. There's no way you don't know it. And you want to talk about the architecture of the building, you want to talk about the land, you want to talk about this, but you don't ever touch on, you know, also there was a Civil War battle in the backyard. Like, you're just skimming right over that. And I know, I will say this in their defense. I think some people do that because you have these paranormal groups who are really just people who want to go into abandoned buildings and just honestly fuck them up. And not all of them, obviously, but you do have your select, YouTube ghost hunters who just go in and, spray paint or tear stuff up. And so I think some of these places that lie, it might also be to keep
To protect.
those, yeah, like keep the bad ones at bay. But I think in that they don't realize, and the other thing is, you're not just erasing the history, you're taking away the voice of any spirits who want to communicate. And me and Liz both can tell you how many times we've gone somewhere and it's like they have just been waiting for somebody to come and want to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's almost like it's like if you've ever had a date at like a coffee shop and you're running an hour behind and you get there, that feeling of like, I've been waiting so long. It's this feeling of like, I'm so relieved that I can finally talk about it. And like, I've communicated with a woman at the Jemison Center who was raped. That was what
That's what
she
she
said
told
to
us.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what she said to me. This is not an assumption I came to, but imagine how good it probably felt for her to be able to finally tell somebody that. And
Mm-hmm.
especially somebody who would care.
Right. And you know what? And a lot of times these places that want to, rebuke and say you're doing the devil's work and the places aren't haunted, you know, once once their story is told or once they're heard, it
It
does
stopped.
quiet down. It
Yeah.
quiets down. So
Yeah.
you would think that if they really don't want their place to be known as being haunted, that they would let people come in and do that so that it does die down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, I think too, with people lying about things like that, it's kind of like what you're saying. Like, even if your intentions are good, it's not, you're either way you slice it, you're still erasing the history, you're still lying,
Right.
you're still taking away, and like,
You're taken away from, like, yeah, okay, the structure's there, the history of the property's there, that's all great and fine and dandy, but you're taking away from the people that made it what it was. You're
yes,
taking away the importance of the land, the importance of the history of the people that once were there, and they deserve their stories to be told. They deserve
yes,
their voices to be heard. They deserve, you know, they deserve that. Especially with like the Native American Indians, and how tragic that story is, and you know they deserve to be, I don't
Honored.
know what word I'm looking for, but, yeah, honored, for what they went through, the suffering.
and I
Um,
mean, you would be shocked, you know, like the Jemison Center. They were known for the conditions that people lived in being so bad, and sleeping on the ground and being waterboarded and sexually abused and chemically restrained. And I will never. This is one EVP that I probably will remember forever, and it was because it was the first EVP we ever got that made me sick at my stomach.
Interesting.
Walking through this big, like, housing area where they had all the beds. And I was talking, to Liz, and all the mattresses are still in the building, and they're all
Mhm.
still on the ground. And I
Yeah.
was saying something like, I feel like these mattresses were on the ground when the people still lived in here. Like, I don't think this is just, and we were talking about the mattresses, and anyway, there was brown stains on almost every mattress.
Yeah, like a
And
brown and yellow kind of, like you could tell that it was not rust from
yeah,
anything. Like it was like dark brown and
like
like had like
coffee
a
brown.
yellow ring around it.
Oh, so
And
like cold blood.
well,
It could be that, or it could be feces and
Oh,
urine.
urine. And
gotcha.
so we were walking, and I wasn't even talking to them. I was talking to her. And I said to her, I was like, I'm going to ask what these stains are. And as soon as I got out of my mouth, I said, can you tell me what these stains are? And within 2 seconds,
Urine.
urine. And it was the clearest, I promise you, one of the clearest
And it's so
EVPs.
fast. It literally, like, she did not even wait 2 seconds and it came through like urine. That is urine.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
like,
Yeah.
ah, that's gross.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's awful because, like for them, for those stains to be in that mattress that bad, they were not taking care of any of their patients the way that they should have been. Like
Right.
we both have experience in the medical field. Um, we've taken care of people. We've been caretakers. Like we know that you are supposed to regularly like change out their diapers if they need them. Like change out their bed pads so that they don't ruin the mattress. I don't think they ever even used anything to stop the urine or whatever from getting on the mattress itself.
Right.
Um, they just put them on a mattress on the floor and then left them there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's
pretty sure
sad.
some of the history there. I'm pretty sure the employees um, would pit the patients against each other when they got bored and make them fight until one of them died.
Yeah. That is,
Um,
and these things that we're saying, if anybody who's watching wants to fact check, they can, because there was an internal newspaper at the Jemison Center that the
mhm.
patients wrote every day. And it was like a facility newspaper, but the records for it still went into an archive that we were able to find.
Mhm.
That's cool.
And in the very beginning, they had like all this land. It's a huge location, and they had like plants, they had crops. They would teach them trades like baking and mechanics and house cleaning, and taught them how to cook and stuff like that. But eventually, they, like, honestly, if I'm in my professional opinion, what 99% of our facilities do now. They took in so many patients without having the staff that the patient to staff ratio ended up being, I think it was like over 100 to one staff, because
Wow.
originally the facility was built for to house like maybe 200 people, but in the end they had, I think it was over 1,000 people
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
all
That's like a
around.
lot of those asylums, like Penhurst Asylum, Rolling
Mhm.
Hills Asylum. There was always more patients to staff, which is why the patients, didn't get the care,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that they should have, and it's really sad. And you could drop anybody off for any reason that you were saying
yeah,
earlier. I mean,
yeah,
back then, think
especially,
about back then, we didn't know what postpartum was.
Yeah.
yeah,
So husbands would drop their wives off because their wives were going through postpartum with what we know now is postpartum depression, but would just drop them off and they never had to come back for them. And
yeah.
you know what I
And
mean? Like,
my mom, that's a very sensitive topic for me because my mom has epilepsy.
mhm,
And back in those times, if you had a seizure, you were insane. Or if
right.
you had a seizure, you were possessed. Like during the
Mhm.
Salem witch trials, anybody that had, and seizures, obviously, most people know you don't have to be born with them. You can
Yeah.
bump your head when you're learning how to walk. You bump your temple on something, and that's enough scar tissue. But back then, they would just dump them into these asylums because they thought they called them fits.
Mhm.
But really, so my mom back then, my mother would have been somewhere like the Jemison Center or
Yeah.
somewhere like Penhurst. And that's why, in full transparency, we never got permission to go to the Jemison Center, but also we were never told not to go to the Jemison Center.
Right.
So we just go because in
So technically, then it's not a break. It's not a B&E.
right in there's no doors.
Yeah.
There's
No
no
doors.
doors.
So funny
No.
you say this because
Like,
there's this
Yeah.
there's this house in Birdsboro, and it is the house was built by Abraham Lincoln's great great grandfather.
Wow.
wow.
Mordecai Lincoln, his name was. It was built in like 1730. The house still stands. And whenever I go there, I always go there. I walk around it. Well, the last time we were there, the basement door was open. Now, my friend, who I do a lot of the investigation with around there, he's a police officer up there. So he's like, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm like, why not? He's like, cause it's a B&E. I'm like, no, it isn't. The door's open. Right.
Yeah.
So so we went there one time, not him, but me and my other girlfriend, and she like, went in and I took a picture of her and I sent it to him. I'm like, well, now you're an accessory, so you can't say nothing. I was like, 'cause but if the door's open, you know
Right.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It
Yeah.
Mhm.
doesn't say no trespassing. There's no trespassing signs. There's no
Right. Because it's public property, right?
is what?
At this It's public property. Like it's open to the public.
Actually, no, nobody really knows who owns it, which is
Huh.
also
Well,
strange.
that's another thing. Like getting permission, I wish I could explain to you how,
Oh yeah.
like, that. I have never in my life, and I mean, I've worked in retail, I worked in healthcare for 10 years. I have never come across some of the rude, I mean, not to say, but honestly, bitches that I've come across. Because, like, the woman who rebuked me, you
That's
know,
crazy to me.
you could have just, I have had to, now let me clarify this. I'm usually good with them saying no. Like, even
Right.
though it aggravates me because I'm like, well, okay, you own a historic location, but you don't want to let people investigate, whatever. But it's when you're
Disrespect.
unnecessarily rude and like belittling about it that I don't like, because you could have simply said, like every other person I talked to, no, we don't allow people to come in and do that. And I would have said, okay, well, I appreciate your time. And honestly, not to, but people should be grateful that we're even calling, because do you know how many people I've called and they've said, Well, I really appreciate you calling first because we've had, I don't know how many people just Google it and then show up.
Mhm.
Right.
And we don't do things like that. That's not how. But with the Jemison Center, that's like what you're talking about. Nobody knows who owns it now. I'm pretty sure it's like government property. It's out in the middle of nowhere on this like industrial road. Nobody really even knows. You have to be looking to find it.
Mhm.
So when we were talking about going there, we kind of went back and forth because I was like, well, is it trespassing? You do technically have to. So like at the end of the driveway, they have, it looks like a cow gate, like one of those little old school two V's that meet
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
walk,
yeah. Yeah, the gates,
and
yeah.
you just step over it. But once, see, that's the thing, once you get to the building itself, nothing is locked, nothing is closed, nothing has like padlocks. I don't think they give a shit about it, honestly. As long as you're not out there doing drugs, spray painting, vandalize, just doing stupid stuff. As long as you're out there minding your business, we've been out there,
3 or 4 times.
yeah, and not one time have we ever been bothered. But
There was our first time we went, there was people already there. They were shooting a music video.
yeah,
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
so that was a trip. Pretty sure like there was a group of boys and like one girl. And I'm pretty sure that girl was being kind of weird about us being up there. I don't know. She like we experienced something, heard us like an audible with our eardrums scream from up like on the third
those are the
floor,
best. Those
and
are
we
the
were on the fifth floor, and the people shooting the music video were in the basement, and we were like, "Oh my god, did you hear that?" And then the girl downstairs just started busting out laughing so hard. And I don't know if maybe that was a fear response for her or if she was being sideways. I don't know. But it rubbed me the wrong way, and I did not like it.
or she was being sideways. I like how you say that.
and like people, my thing is, if you're a skeptic, if you're religious, if it's against what you believe in, that's fine.
Mhm.
But like I told you in the beginning, my mother, and this is kind of funny, and I don't know if I should be saying this on a live, but I'm gonna say it anyway because it's funny to me. My mother was always like, "Don't mess with that. Leave that stuff alone. Don't mess with that stuff." And then, so we have a TikTok page
Mhm.
where we've posted a couple things, and my mom recently made a TikTok account, which she's 50 something years old. I didn't even know she knew it was a thing. She made a TikTok account,
Uh-huh.
and she, how you can see who's like viewed your profile.
Yeah.
I was sitting here and got a notification that I had a like on one of our videos. And I went and looked. My mom had found the page and she was liking. And like that thing your mom does, like if you're out in public doing something and she looks at you like, I'm going to get your ass later. That's what it felt like because I didn't tell her. I didn't tell her that we do this because I knew what it would be. And so she saw it and I called her that day, talked to her for 3 hours. I've talked to her probably 20 times since then and she's never brought it up.
Wow, interesting. So
Yeah.
maybe she's starting to have a healthy respect for it, seeing that you're having
Yeah.
fun and you're not really doing anything bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If money was no option and time was not option, or I'm sorry, if money was not a factor and time was not a factor, where's the one bucket place that you guys would want to go investigate?
Honestly, I don't even know if it's actually in the States.
That's okay.
I'd probably leave the country to go, like find a different location because I know like while I love the country that I live in,
Yeah, absolutely.
I still am like I'm even more curious about other countries and like what
Well,
their
I mean,
history.
Italy has like, I mean, you're literally walking on streets in the 12th century.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like they have in Rome, they have the Pantheon. The Pantheon was built 27 years before Jesus Christ was born, and it is still standing
yeah,
stronger than most of the houses that are built today. You know what I mean? Like it's insane. So I agree. Like in other countries, I mean, we're an old country, but we're not as old as you
Yeah,
know.
and like for me, 1,000% beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would want to go to Ireland
Oh
Hmm.
yeah.
because, well, for one, obvious reasons, I have red hair and freckles and I'm a ginger, but obviously also Ireland, there's literally a show on Discovery and it's called Haunted Ireland and it's all about where they go to all these like castles and stuff.
Oh, I
And
would
like
love to investigate a castle. I would feel like such a
when
princess.
when you watch even the most like active, intense ghost hunters, ghost adventures, whatever it is, what we have here is nothing compared to what you're saying in Italy, where there's 12th century streets, or in Ireland, where there's a castle that's been there for God knows how long, and God knows how many people have gone through it, and like um Ozzy Osbourne's son does a show where
Yeah,
he travels around, and just based off what I've seen, I think a general consensus we can both say solid answer. We would probably just do like a tour through Europe, like
Yeah,
start in one place and just go
and
all
just
through
that
it.
go.
would be cool. But my place would be actually the White House.
Really?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I have a couple books on. I have a
Yeah.
couple books on the hauntings of the White House because multiple presidents you know, have reported paranormal activity in there. And I feel like I've heard that there's some like some stuff like underneath the White House and stuff. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that.
Like
I'm thinking of something else.
something?
Huh?
Like underground tunnels or like what?
Well, I'm sure there's underground tunnels in case they got to get the El Presidente out. You know what I mean? But I mean, like, I don't want to say catacombs, but something like, there's like some like hidden. Obviously, there is, and that's probably wouldn't you we wouldn't be able to go there. I would just want
Right.
to be able to investigate the White House because there's been so many presidents that have witnessed or have talked about paranormal activity in the White House.
Right.
Yeah,
So, and it's such an untouchable place. It makes me want to do it even more. So
yeah,
Right.
that was like, if somebody was like, where anywhere, I'd be like, take me to Washington D.C. I want to go in the White House.
Oh, yeah.
You know. All
That
right,
would
ladies,
be
listen. Time flies when you're having fun.
it sure does.
Where so you guys put some of your stuff up on TikTok? Is that where people can find like you do you put like investigative stuff up? Do you put EVPs up? Like where can people find you?
so we haven't really, I wouldn't say, posted a lot yet.
We're still trying to get like that part of it figured out. Like we are
Oh yeah.
really, really new to posting things like this online. So we don't know video editing or anything. Like and I, as much as I've used TikTok since 2020, I have not used it for any kind of content creation that was
Listen,
worthwhile.
you don't have to do all I don't do that. I've literally been doing this almost 20 years. And I've literally like when I go live, when I do go to investigations and stuff, I just go live. I don't edit. I don't do any of that stuff. I just go live during my investigations. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a content creator. I know people disagree with that because I do my show, but I don't edit. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So
Right.
it's raw. It's what you see is what you get. I mean, I'll put my EVPs up. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
some of my EVPs I'll put up and I'll share some really good EVPs. But other than that, if I'm putting up an investigation, it's what you see is what you get.
yeah,
And not a lot of people like to watch those videos because I don't know why. They like to watch the stuff that's edited and there's razzle dazzle going on constantly. But for me, I like raw out there stuff. And when I say it, that even includes with the people like that don't do all the hype on their videos, like Jason
mhm,
Hawes, right? They do investigations and yes, it's edited and yes, it's professionally done, but it still looks like you're just literally watching them investigate. It's not
Yeah.
like so big. You know what I
But
mean?
we do have a TikTok page that we posted, I think, a couple of videos on.
Yeah.
And
Is
that
it
one's
Spirit Seekers 2014.
yeah, that one is just Spirit Seekers 2014. And then I did just activate our YouTube channel.
Hmm.
So that we should be able to start going live and stuff soon on there.
That's good.
Um, and we do have a Facebook, Spirit Seekers, Echoes of the Afterlife. But that's really it right now. And I mean, what we did is kind of like what you're talking about. Like one of them, we were in one location, and you know, I think Liz was actually just running her phone in general, and then we got something, and so when she went back and watched it, she posted it, and then I reposted it to our page.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sorry, I was just reading. Big Ben was saying that there are tunnels under the White House, and some say one of the tunnels leads to a mansion in the Mozark Mountains or whatever it's called. I seen a video and on it, and apparently people can't even get their drones close as they lose power and cut off somehow.
Well, I believe
Yeah.
you think about it, Area 51.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's like it's a White House thing, you know what I mean? And then David said DC in general has to be loaded with paranormal. And I agree. You have Arlington Cemetery, you have I mean, there's so much in DC for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the White House would be my choice.
We recently went to the old Cahaba, which was, I believe, the original capital of the state of Alabama, and then like it was in Selma, but then they relocated it to a different location, and then relocated it again to Montgomery. But we went to the OG capital of the state. If anybody else goes to Old Cahaba, make sure you bring plenty of bug spray. Plenty of bug spray, because the swarms of mosquitoes there is unlike anything I have ever experienced in my life. I literally could not breathe. I had one go up my nose and the other down my throat.
Stop it.
It was so gross. Oh, I wanted to die so bad. And we had no bug spray. We had sunscreen. We weren't going to burn to death, but we did not have bug spray. And
I would have lathered the sunscreen on so the mosquitoes would slip off of it.
that would have been smart.
I had like a thick layer of sunscreen, so they would have tried to. Like, bzing, bzing.
And we got some stuff there.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool, actually. A lot of one of the houses we went up to actually isn't even the house anymore. It's the add-on that was behind it that remains, and even it's missing like half of its structure. But it was the slave quarters there. Like they had a whole house just for the slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And they were ready to talk. They wanted to talk so bad, but then, they wouldn't actually say anything. They said my name and they said her name a couple of times, and then we couldn't get anything through on the Estes method. But we use GhostTube Vox. I paid for it for like a year. It's like $11. So I was running my Vox. I don't remember if it was muted or not during that. We actually haven't even gone over the evidence from there yet, I think. I think we still haven't gone over the evidence from Horsepen 40.
Yeah.
And that was the investigation before Old Cahaba.
Listen, I'm like a year behind.
Oh, girl.
I'm a year behind, so don't feel so bad.
You too, that people like I did, I do just want to say for anybody that might be watching that wants to get into the paranormal, don't be deterred by the same things that I was. Like, you don't have to have $1,000 camera. You
Mm-mm.
don't have to have a team of 6 people and a cameraman. You don't have to have mics and IR lights and all this stuff. We started with our cell phones, which eventually led into a spirit box, which eventually led into an EMF reader. And now, I mean, we have equipment, but like even the camera we use now was like $120 on
Right.
Amazon.
Right.
And the other thing too is if you want to do it and you're what's the word I'm looking for? If you want to do it and you're nervous about, you know, coming into contact with somebody and not knowing what to say or how to treat a certain, because like what she was talking about when we were at Oklahoma on the actual slave grounds, um, we didn't get anything. I probably stood out there for 10 or 15 minutes and got nothing. And it wasn't until I was walking back to the car and I had said, okay, well, clearly you don't seem to want to communicate, so I'm going to leave you alone. I'm not trying to, like, get you in trouble. I'm not trying to upset you or anything or force you to talk to me. And as soon as I said that, for the first time, the whole time we've been out there, I got a male EVP and it came through and he was like, help me, help me. And it was twice. And so then I went and got her. But when we went back out, we didn't really get anything. But I think you have to be aware and like not to make it, a political or racial thing, but like in that situation, I'm a young white woman
Right.
standing on the grounds of what was a slave quarters, asking, this probably, man of color to talk to me. But back then, that was enough for them to hang it.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
Like, and not just that, but back then too, you had the white people who they go to the slaves and be like, oh, you seem to be living in such bad conditions. And if they even agreed, that was enough to hang them. Like, you couldn't
Right.
complain. You couldn't say, so like, be aware of
Yeah.
where you're going and who
Absolutely.
you're talking to. And like, remember that this is another thing that chaps my ass, to be honest with you. They do not have to talk to you. It does not
Mm-mm.
matter if you're sitting and you can physically see a spirit 2 feet from you. Remember to have the respect of, this is your space. If you don't want me in your space, you can let me know and I'll leave. And if you don't want to talk to me, that's your choice. And
Right.
honestly, from what we've seen, 99% of the time, if you do that, you get more activity
Mm-hmm.
Right.
because they know, like, okay, they're respecting my space. They're respecting, if I don't want to communicate with them for whatever reason. So that's a big thing. I mean, just, I feel like we tell everybody, like David, who's been in here, we did an investigation with him and his wife. That's actually, they did the Pickens County Jail with us.
Yeah.
Mm.
And, they're very similar to us, I feel like, in their core belief, which is, we're not going in to piss anything off. We're not going in to, stir up something and then leave for the property owner to deal with. We're not trying to take anything home. We're not going to be disrespectful. We're not going to go into, we went to one place where a man burned to death in a jail cell. And there was I'm not going to say their name, but there was a group before us who had gone to that jail. They went into that cell and started a small fire as
Uh,
a trigger object. But see, that's another thing. Trigger objects are fine unless, I personally would not go to a place where, there was 100 people hung and hang up a noose.
right.
Now I might go and take, like a rope and lay it on the ground, but I'm not gonna hang it up and tie a knot and a noose in it. Like,
Right.
going from trigger object to disrespect is a fine line that I think,
A lot of people don't know how to walk that
yeah,
fine line.
Right.
Like you can there's plenty of ways to come up with positive triggers rather than
Yeah,
negative ones.
yeah.
Like
I mean, you
if
can
you
even do it with music. Era cues.
yeah.
If you
Mhm.
watch the Kling brothers, they called them era cues, and they would, wherever they were at, they would, play the period music, or, we did an investigation in Gettysburg, and I wore period dress. You know what I mean? To
Mhm.
see if that helped to provoke, and when I say provoke, I mean it in a good way, but
Yeah.
provoke, the spirits to talk to me. And I actually wore the dress backwards to see if somebody would correct me. You know what I mean? Like I was
Yeah.
trying to get it, to get them to, because it, there was a house full of women that lived in this house. You know what I mean? And I wore the dress backwards, and I was hoping that, they would, come forward and, tell me, "Hey, girl, your dress is on backwards," something.
Right.
But
The oh, I was gonna say something and I can't remember what it was.
yeah, I mean, like Big Ben is saying, like, you really honestly, you don't, and what you, to go back on what, what you guys are saying, you don't need equipment. Like when we are at events and I'm taking a group, down to investigate somewhere, and I'm like, "Does anybody have any equipment?" And they say no. I'm like, "Get your phones out. Your
Yeah.
phone recorders will work. Your phone cameras work. You don't need all the, bells and whistles and the
Yeah.
colorful shit." I mean, when you think about it, you're talking to somebody from the 1800s. They're going to look at that like, "What the hell is that anyway?" You know what I mean? They're
Right.
not going to want to touch anything like that because they don't know what it is. You
Exactly.
know? I mean, I have a trigger prop. It's a black cat, and
Well, I
it's
remember now.
a
I
cool cat.
remember what I was like you can do some research and find out, like I don't know, a favorite flower of the person that supposedly haunts the location, and then bring a bouquet of those flowers.
Yeah, absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
like it's one of those things where the it's very important to remember that you can't always just go in somewhere guns blazing. Like you've got to be careful. Some of these
They don't
things
act on command.
you and can follow you home and haunt you.
And I mean, based off of attachments, I had when we went to that jail where the Trail of Tears is, we were doing the Estes method in the men's cell, like
Mhm.
quarter. And so, that's where, for anybody watching that might not know, you have one person with noise canceling headphones, they're listening to a spirit box, and the other people are asking questions. And I was under, so I was the one doing this method. And they started getting things like, um, it was like, "She's pretty," something
Mhm.
about my hair. And while this was all happening, I couldn't hear it. All I could hear was, "She's pretty." But I didn't know who they were talking about. And then I heard something about hair, but I didn't know who they were talking about. And then I felt something like touching the back of my neck.
Mhm.
And it's like I told Liz, I didn't really feed into that because I think that can be dangerous
Mhm.
because, you know, sometimes these spirits don't realize they're dead.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I want to go in and, feed into that and start and turn it into something where something's going to follow me home.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's also like we're going back there in October, which we probably will live stream that on YouTube for
Oh,
sure.
that'd be cool.
Oh yeah.
We're going back in October, and the reason that we're waiting so long, we went in May, but when you go somewhere, that's another thing, a piece of advice if I could give is if you go somewhere and you feel a personal
Connection.
connection or you feel drawn to that place, please be careful and do not go to that place over and over back to back because that also can and would breed an attachment.
Yeah.
And
So I'm so guilty of this. I go to Gettysburg at least once a month, or once every other month, because Gettysburg. Well, I actually want to move there, so it's different. I'm not just going there for paranormal. I'm going there because I love Gettysburg.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it's definitely um it's definitely some place that I want to live one day. So, um ladies, I've had you for an hour and a half. Doesn't even feel like it. You guys are so
Right.
adorable. I love it. I'm going to follow
Thank
your
you.
YouTube channel. Please, everybody that's watching, please go and check them out. Spirit Seekers, Echoes of the Afterlife. I love it. It's cute. You guys are adorable. And
Thank
I love you. I love how you guys have good head on your shoulders. And just my advice to you is just stick together, always have each other's backs. You don't need a big entourage of people, you just need
you.
people in your circle that you trust and that you can investigate with and have fun with, because that's what this is for. It's supposed to be a fun thing, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah,
um
yeah.
and we've talked about, expanding at some point, but even that will be a thorough process because
Yeah.
it's like we've talked about, like me and her, if I didn't know her and she didn't know me and we decided to do this together and we went into somewhere and, she says something that forms an attachment to both of us, I mean,
Yeah.
so you be, yeah, being careful about who you, um,
And do it that way.
I always thanks, Big Ben.
But
Why
what
is
were
this
you saying?
spazzing out? Sorry.
um, no, you're good. Just be careful who you take to places like that because, you might not do something wrong, but if the person you're with, if you don't know and trust them, and it's also a physical safety thing
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
like, we have friends, we met when we were 16
Mhm.
and I'm almost 28. She is 28.
Mhm.
And we've been friends 12 years. And I trust her, so I know, if I fall and get hurt, which is a good possibility, as you know, like going into these places, you can fall, you can step on a rusty nail, you might grab a railing where the rust is sticking out and get stabbed or cut. And so you have to know that the person you're with, like, I know if something happened, even if she had to, like, drag me to the road to, like, meet an ambulance or something, she
Yeah.
would.
Yeah. And I've got the manpower. My legs are very strong, and I know how to
Not
squat.
only that, but you want somebody that knows you, right?
Yeah.
Knows who you are as a person, knows and it's not going to leave you, isn't going to, knows if something's not right to get you out of there. You know what I mean? Or knows, can read the room, so absolutely. And I think it's great that you guys are so cute. I love it. I'm happy you guys came on. Thank you so much for coming on. Um,
Yeah. They're awesome.
Everybody
Thank you.
watching, please share the show out. Not for me and not for Paranormal Brew, but for these two lovely ladies, Spirit Seekers, and Echoes of the Afterlife. Please go check them out, like their pages and stuff like that, and follow them on YouTube. And again, please share it out for them. For some reason, I couldn't make my public video on my personal page. I don't know why I couldn't change it to public. So it's only public right now on Paranormal Brew's Facebook and YouTube page, not my personal page. So hopefully when we're done here, I can change it and I can change it to public on there, which I'm so furious about right now. But anyway, much love to all my brewskis. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.